We got a midweek of rivalries that will play huge for each team's season. Tennessee and Kentucky get a rematch in Rupp Arena. And can the Vols get revenge on the road? Plus, Missouri and Oklahoma reunite their rivalry from the Big 12.
And things are getting a lot more complicated. The coaching carousel has its first major news of the season. A blue blood will be looking for a new coach, and several SEC coaches are on the hot board. Plus, Florida doesn't fear the jungle as they beat Auburn. Bubble watch is on as it was an up and down weekend for SEC teams on the bubble.
All that and more today on the Hoop Southbound Show.
Well, minus our internet issues, I'm glad we decided both to reset our routers before the big game today. I see that you got your old school team that I hate jersey on, but it is what it is. My team's not in the Super Bowl, so it's totally fine.
I mean, neither is mine, but I have too many Chiefs fans in my life to not root for the opposite team. And I mean, Jalen Hurts is objectively the most attractive man in the league, so why would I not root for him?
I just want both teams to lose, so that's my big Super Bowl take,
You're
right?
rooting for Kendrick Lamar.
Yeah, I'm rooting for the Kendrick Lamar concert. That 100%. If you guys have not picked up on one team that I really, reason I dislike them, and then, also I've got some personal problems with the Chiefs from having lived in Kansas City. So it is what it is. But, I tell you, somebody who might also have a personal problem with how things went yesterday is the Auburn Tigers. Maddie, why don't you lead us off here in today's rebound?
Yeah, I mean, as we predicted, the jungle was rocking, but unfortunately for the Tigers, so were the Florida Gators. Even without Elijah Martin, Todd Golden's crew took down Bruce Pearl and the Tigers 90-81 in their own house.
Yeah, Auburn came out hot in this game, and it looked like it was going to be business as usual. But about halfway through the first half, Florida flipped a switch and turned it up to 11 real quick in this game, and they got going. Gators went on a 37-12 run from the end of the first half into about 15 minutes left in the game in the second. It really was the defining moment of this game. Auburn tried to fight back and got a late 18-6 run. Just simply wasn't enough for them. To me, though, this game doesn't speak bad about Auburn. They were seriously overdue in this game, and it showed for a loss. A lot of mistakes they don't normally make, frustration fouls, loss of rhythm, and Florida came ready to play, and that's a combination even when you are a really good basketball team for a rough day. So is what it is. Like I said, I think this is less to do about Auburn. I think they were overdue for a loss. We kept mentioning it that it was going to happen, and eventually. And sure enough, Florida gets the win there in Neville. I'm sure Auburn's going to bounce back and everything else, but there's definitely some things to speak about for this game. Maddie, kind of your thoughts.
Yeah, Bruce Pearl in his press conference even mentioned the fact that, they were unprepared for this game. They had a lot of flaws and they obviously didn't get ready for it the way that they should have. But for me, the biggest thing to pay attention to in this game was the front court. The front court from Florida, they came together to force Auburn to make those hard shots, fight to get boards. The rebound battle was locked at 40, not something we expect from this Auburn front court. We expect them to be, at least a couple ahead, but Florida got in there, stayed in the fight, and it just didn't work out for Auburn in this one. We assumed that the jungle would add some points. For them, and I think they did on that 18-6 run, but it just wasn't enough to overcome the Gators in this one.
Yeah, it's weird, right? Like they were talking on the broadcast about how Florida's front court doesn't get any love and the guards do. Maybe that's true on a national scale, but we've talked about Florida's front court a lot and how much we have liked their front court. Auburn's got a good front court too, but I really think that it really showed like just how darn good Florida's front court is. I'm 100% with you. Alex Condon in this game was awesome. 17 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists in 32 minutes. He had a really darn good basketball game. Then you look at Hauk in this game. He had 16 points, 9 rebounds, 1 rebound short of a double-double. Like, the front court was really good. Even Ruben Chinyelu, who didn't put up a ton of points, he had some solid minutes that he was out there in the 14 that he played. Just really, Hauk and Condon were just really darn good and hard to deal with. Gators are just a hair better. They were just a hair better in this game, but Auburn was like not themselves, and that really, changed the way that they played. Really good shooting night for the Gators. Gators are just like a little bit short of being a legitimate national title contender in my eyes, but if they keep shooting this way, really that's the thing that I think that's left for them. More games shooting like this will change that perception in my mind, and they should be around a 1 seed at this point. When we're talking about NCAA tournament contention, they're there. They hit 13 threes in this game. This is a team that normally averages around 8 point something to 9 point something, without looking at the stat sheet. And they definitely got a boost hitting 13 and shooting 40 something percent from three, or 39% from three in this game. Solid performance for the Gators all around. Every area of the game. Florida was just better than Auburn in this one. Again, I don't think it speaks anything bad about Auburn. I think they just were overdue for a bad game. They were overdue for a loss, and it just came out. And it came out at an inopportune time in a really big basketball game for them. They're going to be fine. This just makes even more drama for what's coming here very shortly between Alabama and Auburn at this point, with those two teams being tied in the SEC race. So, I mean, it's coming quickly. It's going to be a huge game this weekend when they face off, but here we are. We're definitely on that game of destiny right now, but huge game for Florida. Good win for them. Let's go ahead and go to the next one. It was a game that came in three major moments, but it was an awesome battle between Missouri and Texas A&M. Aggies get the win off a late Wade Taylor rollout three with about 2 seconds left to play. 67-64. Aggies get the win. What a basketball game, Maddie. Kind of give me your takeaways from A&M and Missouri. Top
Yeah, I
15
mean,
matchup.
yeah, this one was a huge game, obviously, for Texas A&M to kind of get some momentum built, continue on, but a game that Mizzou didn't need to lose, especially at home. And I think the boards and the paint play really got this win for A&M. You look at Pharrell Payne with 20 points, and Coleman had 16 boards in this game. Obviously, we talk about what a good rebounding team this is, but Henry Coleman grabbing 16, absolutely insane. And then you also look at the Aggies out shooting the Tigers. Something we said would not happen, especially in the Tigers gym. Um, Outshot them by 6% from the field and about 3% from three. Not something we expected. So when you add that in, it's almost an anomaly, and you can't count out Texas A&M if they're actually able to shoot the ball better than their opponent.
Well, I mean, is it a matter of them out shooting their opponent, or is it a matter of Texas A&M has one of the best defenses in the country? And I think that's what really played a big portion of it, because like Texas A&M's defensive pressure held Missouri to only 23.8% from deep in this game, and Texas A&M was just a little bit better in the glass on this game as well. This was a fight. Texas A&M got the jump on Missouri early to get themselves rolling. They went on a 12-0 run right out of the gate for the Aggies. Missouri also put together two big runs in this game in their comeback. They had a 15-4 run and a 15-2 run, and Cruz was a big part of that, who was hitting some major threes. I think there was a point where he hit 3 threes in a row that really brought Missouri back into this basketball game. And like, to me though, that's kind of the difference. And you're right, the front court was really the difference in this game. Everyone's going to talk about Taylor's three that he had as the game winner, but Pharrell Payne was solid down low in this game as well. He had 20 points in this one. That's more points than Missouri's entire front court combined in this game. And he only goes +1 in the plus minus, but you could feel his impact in this entire game. It's one of those times that the stat sheet was really kind of lying to you. But you go back to that defense, A&M also did an awesome job locking down Caleb Grill and holding him to only 4 points in this game. Caleb Grill was not Caleb Grill in this game, and Missouri's defense was not going to let him get loose, not going to let him start shooting threes. It was really a lockdown on Caleb Grill that made a huge difference in this basketball game. A&M's defense, to me, was the big difference. And you're right. I think the front court play is right there. I think you piece that all together. Missouri's a points per shot, highly efficient offense. They didn't have that on Saturday, and that really allowed for Texas A&M to get that win on the road.
Yeah, it was a great game overall. Like you said, I think people are gonna be talking about that Wade Taylor shot, especially once they get into the tournament. We know we're gonna see some shots like that, so we're gonna be hearing his name. But Pharrell Payne, I feel like, was definitely the underdog of this one.
Yep, the undercard fighter, so to speak, the unsung hero in this one.
Definitely so. On to the next one. It was a game where we had a sensational first half. The start of the second started taken over by one specific team, and then late in the second half, it became a brawl. We're talking about Alabama, Arkansas. It was a game. It was electric. It, I'm still reeling from it, honestly. David,
Yeah,
we
Alabama was able to close it out in Bud Walton 85-81. Weird game to me, honestly. There was a lot of fans who started leaving around the under 8, and I just kind of leaned to you and I was like, this game isn't over. Like, why are people leaving? Did people not realize this right now? And Arkansas was doing a lot of things right and just had a feel. I just had a feeling we were in for a crazy finish in that basketball game, just watching it out. I really did feel like that was a game that like that ending was what I expected out of this game. What really changed this game though was right at the start of the second half where Arkansas picked up a ton of fouls rapidly in the beginning of the second, and they weren't great calls, but nothing egregious was happening. It was just normal college basketball officiating, and just like, that's not good. No one's doing great there, but I don't feel like that's what cost Arkansas the game or anything like that. But what it did do is that you could tell that changed the way that Arkansas was playing defense in this game. It changed a lot of their physicality, and they were late to adjust to it, getting going there in the second half. But Arkansas turned it on, and once the foul differential, which was insane, from that series there at the beginning of the second half, once it started closing, like Arkansas started making that run back. And they started getting into the fight a little bit more with more trips to the free throw line. Alabama playing a little bit softer defense, and it just allowed Arkansas to get this game down to a single possession. Like Arkansas was a defensive rebound and a 3-pointer away from sending this game into overtime. Like that was it. And of course, you had a bunch of missed threes, like in the under a minute left in the game. Z gets the board, and you think, after Chris Youngblood misses that one of those free throws, and you're down 3. Z gets the board, and he just fumbles it right into fumbles it out of bounds, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating if you're a Razorback fan, but they played really, really well in this one. Alabama was able to close it out. Nate Oates said after the game that's an area they really need to improve because they shouldn't have been in that situation that they were, where they kind of let it go from the under 8 on. They missed free throws. Really soft defense was making this a lot more difficult than it should have been for them as much as they were up. But he called it out, and it's like that's one of the things we got to get better. And once they cut it to a single possession, they definitely were like, panic, let's get it done. We got to figure it out right now. It was a good basketball game. It was a great one. I've got more to say about it, Maddie. Do you before I get into it, go ahead and share some of your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, just going back through the game, especially, in the eyes of an Arkansas fan, they played well the entire game, but it was just the stretches of inconsistency where you had a couple of bad turnovers. You had, you know, the series where I think there were 3 or 4 back-to-back plays where we just kept passing the ball to Z to get a 3, and they weren't going in. And, we talked about it, taking a couple bad mid-range shots when
Yes.
probably could have moved the ball a little bit more to get the open shot. So, I think for this game against Alabama gives us more to look forward to because we were able to keep this game close considering some of the other games that we've been in that were just absolutely atrocious at the beginning of SEC play. Some of those teams that aren't the number 3, possibly the number 1 after this weekend, gives me a little hope that we might win a basketball game here or there.
Yeah, Arkansas, there's just a couple possessions I want back, to find a better shot than what was settled for too early in the shot clock. There's a couple of turnovers you'd like to have back. And there's obviously a couple of defensive possessions you'd like to have back as well. There's a couple of things here or there, and I really do feel like Arkansas wins that game at home 4 out of 10 times, something like that. It was crazy. It was a great basketball game. Alabama's a good basketball team, but Arkansas definitely showed a lot that this wasn't a fluke when they went in there and beat Kentucky. This team is playing much, much better. Alabama right now is a really good basketball team. They got the offense and they got to the paint a lot. They got to the paint a lot in this game and made it pressure. This was not a good 3-point shooting night. Arkansas was doing really good job on their defense, on their perimeter defense in this game, moving guys off the line in someone's space, and they were letting other players take those threes that normally not the best one for Alabama to take down. They held Mark Sears to under 11 points in this game. It was a good performance defensively for Arkansas's backcourt, but Alabama getting to that paint made a lot of money for them. And it really sets up Alabama and Auburn next week is going to be an awesome showdown. We kind of felt like it was the game of destiny at this point. That was the other thing. I was like, Arkansas is playing really well, but Alabama's on this collision course right now to go face Auburn for what's going to be an awesome basketball game. I'm kind of feeling that, the basketball gods kind of a little bit were like, yeah, we're going to do this a little bit. Things aren't going to go Arkansas's way, even though you're going to feel good about this one. It's rare. I feel good about a team after a loss. There are no moral victories. But here's the thing. Predictive metrics improved for Arkansas after this game. The KenPom has them projected to win more games now than where it was. Like, I'm not taking away moral victories for this, but predictive metrics matter to the committee when they make selections on Selection Sunday. And for a bubble team, a really solid performance in a Q1A game where they've got it to a 4-point game and they're playing extremely good basketball. Those predictive metrics show that you have the ability to upset someone, and that's something the committee looks at when they're seeding teams in this. So even without the loss or even without the win, Arkansas did the next best thing. They didn't fall in the net. They didn't fall in KenPom. They didn't fall in any of the metrics that the committee are going to look at. And if they did, it was very minimally, and few they actually went up. So predictive metrics wise, Arkansas helped themselves in the B category. A's the win's better. The win is way better. You want the win. Arkansas did really, really well for those predictive metrics. They had nothing to lose yesterday, and them playing a great basketball game actually helped them, and which is crazy at this point to think that, wow, in a loss you helped yourself. That's really the story here, is that Arkansas is that much better now on the bubble, especially after what was a crazy day on the bubble and what's still going on right now as we're sitting here recording this show. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bubble because it got nutty. Absolutely nutty this weekend for teams living on the bubble. When you go back, and Arkansas, this is off of Joe Lunardi's list here, and there are several SEC teams. The last 4 buys are all SEC teams on Joe Lunardi's last update. Now, you guys know how I feel about Lunardi, but right now for this group, we're early enough to where it's like, are you circling kind of the right teams? And I feel like Lunardi's got most of them kind of correct on who's in the bubble watch. Go check out some other bracketologists to look at other teams who you might want to take a look at as well. T3 is really good, but like let's talk about these a little bit right now for Lunardi's list. His last 4 buys, he had Texas, who went 86-78 to a loss at Vanderbilt. We're going to get into that game just a little bit when we do our SEC recap. But like the only team in the last 4 buys that won on Saturday was Vanderbilt over Texas. Texas takes a loss, Oklahoma takes a loss, and Georgia takes a loss in the last 4 buys. The last 4 are in. Nebraska's playing a basketball game today at time of recording against Ohio State. They'll be tipping off here in a little bit. San Diego State took a loss to Colorado State, 68-63. BYU got blown out by Cincinnati on the road. And then the only team so far with a win in the last 4 in is Wake Forest, who got a win against Cal, which is not going to move the needle very much. When it comes to your first 4 out right now, Arkansas is sitting as the number 1 team to Lunardi on the first 4 out. If they had won yesterday, they would have been in the field. However, that loss is not going to hurt them too bad right now because they're right there in that group. So they've got the rest of the first 4 out. Xavier has got an 11 a.m. tip with Villanova. SMU has an off weekend here. Their next game is against Pitt. And then North Carolina gets a 1-point win at home against Pitt. That's going to help. North Carolina's probably right now the second team first 4 out right now in Lunardi's eyes. So that's probably where he's about. We'll see where his update is when it comes out. But like they're right there in that group. And again, it's about grouping the teams really much more than anything else. Next 4 out, VCU is the only team with a win so far in the next 4 out. And it's a win over Dayton, which isn't a huge needle mover, 73-78. Pitt took that loss to North Carolina. UCF got blown out by Baylor out in Waco. And then there's a tip off today with Arizona State versus Oklahoma State. That's another game that, like, even with an Arizona State win, it doesn't move the needle much for Arizona State. So this is a situation where Arkansas's predictive metrics was probably like the third best result on the bubble yesterday. Vanderbilt probably gets themselves in at this point. And then you've got North Carolina, who getting a win is certainly better than just improving your predictor metrics. There's not much after that. Everything else is a non-big needle mover. And then Arkansas is really locked in to either be the first or second team out at this point right now. And with predictor metrics helping, all they got to do is win some basketball games and win the ones they should. And they got some home games that should help them out on that one. Let's go ahead and let's take a look at the other games in the SEC this weekend. We got Ole Miss, who made the late comeback against LSU. We were looking at that score while we were at the Razorback game. It's like, what is happening in Baton Rouge? Ole Miss survives in that one. State gets a close win in Athens, 76-75. State got out early in this one. Georgia was trying to get back into it. It was a crazy basketball game, but State comes away with the win just by a point. They needed to get off that little bumpy road that they were on. Texas gets the win 78, or excuse me, Vanderbilt gets the win over Texas 86-78. We talked about that one a little bit. It was a big game for AJ Hogard, who had a late performance. Carey was great for Vanderbilt in this game. Jason Edwards hit some really tough shots. Vanderbilt was able just to get a few more stops and a few transition baskets and get to the paint a little bit more effectively than Texas. And then Kentucky gets back to winning. Game they should have won 80-57 over South Carolina. And then Tennessee blows out Oklahoma 70-52. Maddie, why don't we take a look at the SEC standings?
Yeah, going through the standings, sitting tied at first. We've got Auburn and Alabama at 9-1. Florida, Texas A&M both at 7-3. Tennessee currently at 7-4, along with Ole Miss. Missouri at 6-4. Mississippi State 5-5, along with Vanderbilt and Kentucky. Moving down the list, we've got Georgia, Texas both at 4-7. Oklahoma and Arkansas at 3-7. LSU at 1-9, and South Carolina still winless in the SEC at 0-10.
Yeah, get some huge results there. Like I said, we kind of felt like the game of destiny right now. 9-1 Alabama and 9-1 Auburn is just going to be an incredible basketball game when it goes down. South Carolina off to their worst start in school history at this point in SEC play. Let's go ahead and let's turn to what was another major story this week in college basketball. And yeah, we're going to talk a little bit of national stuff here because it kind of has an impact in the SEC and will probably get some talk stirring in SEC basketball. This week, the coaching carousel took its first major impact right here in February. It came out this week that Indiana basketball coach Mike Woodson would be leaving out Indiana at the end of the season. Major program in college basketball. This is going to be a Kentucky level coaching search going underway this offseason. And when the news broke, several SEC coaches were mentioned in the hot board discussion to take over the job at Indiana. I'm bringing it up not to make fans panic, but I think it speaks to the level of coaching that's in this conference right now. It's always good to have a coach who's in demand. And this is a program that is going to be willing to write some checks. So there is going to be just a little bit of nervous energy, depending on who Indiana interviews and tries to get after with this job. It's definitely one that I'll be keeping an eye on this coaching search. Maddie, there were, like I said, some SEC names. Two of them right now are leading the SEC in the home run category, that home run hires category that a lot of Indiana fans are talking about right now. And that's Nate Oates and Bruce Pearl. Now, I don't know if Nate Oates will leave. Now, we know some things that are rumored to us about Nate Oates' situation. We won't get into those. If Nate wants to talk about him, Nate will talk about him. But like, as it's nothing bad, by the way. But like, as far as like, he's also going to have most of his roster, or a good portion of his roster, return transfer portal pending next year, and Alabama looks to be have another good season on hand next year. It makes sense why he's always in every coaching search. He's won over 200 games since he came to college basketball. He had a Final Four last year, 4 conference titles, and 5 conference tournament wins throughout his career. Maddie, do you think any thought? He is from the Midwest, but you think Nate Oates would grab some attention to Indiana?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I think the biggest kind of piece to consider there is that I believe Mark Sears is out of eligibility, but like you said, he's still got a good team behind him, and you hit the nail on the head there with the transfer portal pending. You know, some guys are going to leave, but the bulk of the team, as long as they stay a winning program and they're getting everything they need, you're gonna have a lot of returners, and we may see a similar situation to what Auburn's, roster looks like right now, um, with a lot of experience together and a lot of talent, and, you know, you're gonna continue to pull talent as long as you continue to win. So, I don't think Alabama fans have anything to worry about, um, because he seems to like Alabama. If he would've left, I feel like he would've left last year after all the controversy.
I mean, he turned down the Kentucky job. He turned down Ohio State, and he made that pretty clear in the process. Where I don't even think he was offered a Kentucky job, and he's out there going, "No, I'm not going to Kentucky," just immediately on social media last season. So Nate might retire in Alabama. He might be there for a really long time, or until his situation changes. For the stuff that we've been privy to, so to speak, in the rumor mill. But as far as other coaches that you might keep an eye on, you mentioned one team, Maddie, and that was Auburn. Bruce Pearl's name popped up on here. And of course, he's got 693 wins and his very tenured career in college basketball. Final Four back in 2019 with Auburn, 5 conference titles, 4 conference tournament titles. And yeah, Indiana fans really like Bruce Pearl ever since he came to Indiana and won. That's a coach that makes a ton of sense to me. It makes a ton of sense because when you look at Auburn next season, and I'm not saying he will leave, but it does make sense why Indiana would be interested in Bruce Pearl and why there's some more interest. There might be a little bit more interest with a paycheck involved for Pearl leaving for a blue blood program like Indiana. He's going to have to rebuild his roster anyway in Auburn next year.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that a little bit. Your star players are leaving. More than likely, Todd Pettiford's going to the league. He's not
Got a
gonna
chance, yeah.
get that check. So you've got most of the big names on your roster more than likely going away. So you're gonna have to start from scratch anyways. So regardless, it just depends on where you're starting over.
Yeah, I mean, there's some rumors also going around with Auburn basketball that about the NIL situation. And Indiana just got done last season writing, or this last offseason, writing some big checks, trying to build the team that they got. We call them the best team that can't shoot in basketball this season. That's kind of true. But like they got some studs to go play at Indiana, and it just has not worked under Woodson at all. I definitely could see the situation being better in Indiana what if rumors are true on the NIL situation when it comes to basketball in Auburn, it may be a better job. It may be a better job right now, even with what Bruce Pearl has built in Auburn. And not to mention the recruits that he's got. He's got a couple of guys who are in the top 15 recruits in the SEC. He can pull the same thing that Cal did and pull some of those guys away from Auburn and take them with him to Indiana. And regardless, he's going to have to hit the transfer portal like crazy this offseason. I mean, it's the Calipari joke that, in his press conference, at the beginning or back in April was, I talked to the team. There is no team. There's a lot of players running out of eligibility at Auburn next year. That's part of why they're so good this year is they're very tenured, very experienced, got a lot of chemistry together. But they're running out of time playing basketball together, and there's going to be a massive overhaul in roster. So I do think that Bruce Pearl's got a little bit more smoke than Nate Oates, but like that would be the home run hire for them. When we talk about the rest of the proven hires list, we're talking about Buzz Williams, got mentioned in this list. Buzz is good. He's got an Elite Eight to his name and a winning NCAA tournament record and 1 conference title all time. Buzz is, I don't know if he's the guy. But like that Indiana would make a big offer to. But yeah, he's a proven hire and a good basketball coach. Chris Jans, another coach that doesn't have a lot on his NCAA tournament record, got mentioned in this with over 200 wins. One coach that I definitely think is intriguing and can be somebody that can be at Indiana for the next 15 years under this proven hires category that was mentioned on the hot board that this USA Today article put out was Dennis Gates. Midwest has coached the Midwest, has had a really good season this year with Missouri. Not the greatest NCAA tournament record, but this is a young coach with a proven track record and a good mind for offense. It would make a lot of sense if Indiana wanted to make a move on Dennis Gates as well. Out of the proven hire category, I would say that's one of the better ones. That could build a really good team. Bruce Pearl, or not Bruce Pearl, but Buzz Williams. If you want a good basketball team and you're worried about building a good basketball team, Buzz Williams seems like a really good guy. I would go hire Buzz Williams, but like I don't think Indiana's in that kind of territory. I think they're looking to take their squad to the next level and be at the top of the Big Ten. And they might take a home run swing at a very, good coach like Dennis Gates. I can see Dennis Gates being in the conversation. And speaking of conversation, they're worth the conversation category. Mark Byington, who has been great at Vanderbilt this year, has really surpassed. Had a good run in the NCAA tournament last year. It looks like he's going to get Vanderbilt into the tournament this season, or has got a real chance to do so. Their schedule is really tough the rest of the way, but they're going to be in that conversation. Vanderbilt's been good, and then of course, if you want to pay a smaller paycheck and a coach who's probably being paid about half the worth of his salary and has got the best resume for bang for your buck, but it's off the court stuff that's going to be the bigger issue. That's Chris Beard at Ole Miss. And let's face it, Ole Miss has changed as a basketball program. They are getting better, but they are underpaying Chris Beard's value to who he is as a basketball coach on the court. You're talking about someone with a Final Four back in 2019, an NCAA tournament record of 11-5, 2 conference titles, and a conference tournament title. As far as coaches who are being underpaid, he's only making about $3 million at Ole Miss. He's worth about 6 or 7 to be put up there in an upper category. And Indiana's a program that is willing to pay that kind of money to someone. So I kind of like Chris Beard as well. Maddie, any thoughts on the rest of the hot board conversation for the SEC?
Yeah, I think we'll see more as it gets closer to tournament time. Um, just because you get the gist of if a coach is, vibing well with the team or with the program as those tensions start rising. So I think, you mentioned a lot of good names and they're good ones to keep an eye on to kind of see how the program feathers out the rest of the season.
I don't think it again, I don't necessarily think that like this was put out by like some beat writers from Indiana who really like these coaches. And like I said, I think it speaks to everybody's team and the coaching right now in this conference that we have so many attractive hires. There's guys outside the SEC who are going to be in the conversation too. Dusty May, he's from Indiana, was a manager under Bob Knight there. So he's got those kind of things. That's another thing with Chris Beard too, is that the Bob Knight tie. But as far as like other, Dusty May is one of those guys. He's a young coach, great up and comer. The only thing that's really like the big conversation right now with Indiana is, will he leave Michigan after 1 year? He's been very successful this season for a first year coach with Michigan. He's doing great. And I mean, I don't think he's fully unpacked yet. Just getting to Ann Arbor. So, I mean, it would be a big pull if Indiana wanted to pay that buyout and everything else. But he's in the conversation. There's other coaches in the conversation, even in the home run hires, like Scott Drew, who is from Indiana. Like there's a lot of coaches that are going to have some conversation. So I don't necessarily think just because I'm mentioning these coaches and from the article and all the SEC talk here, it's not to stir panic. It's to show that schools and beat writers are definitely out there going, this is who you should hire. This should be on your list. I think it shows to the strength of this conference. And there's a couple of coaches that may have a legitimate like fan bases that might be like, I can see that. So more thoughts of that. But I mean, we'll hear more rumors and everything else. But just any final thoughts here on this coaching carousel story?
I mean, like you said, it's a testament to how great the SEC is, how great these coaches are, and what kind of job you're getting in the SEC. If one of these coaches move, you can almost guarantee we're going to get a big name coach or possibly, like you said, an up and comer into whatever program that is, just because the quality of the job is looking like it's on the up and up versus where it was even in like the early to mid 2000s.
Yeah, it's come a long way. It's come a long way over the last 10 years here in the SEC and this commitment to making basketball better in this conference. I mean, that's a ridiculous list of coaches from one conference, and there were only like 3 or 4 in each category mentioned. And then, like, basically half of each subcategory of proven worth of conversation, home run hires were SEC coaches. So, like, there were so many SEC coaches mentioned in this. I think it speaks. I'm like you mentions speaks to the quality of coaching right now in this conference. A lot to look at, lot to like. If you're a fan, look, only one coach is coming. You can trash and talk and everything else in the comment section about like us even bringing this up, but I think it's a compliment to the team and to everything else to have a coach in demand. Like I can't remember the last time the Indiana job got opened up. Eric Musselman, got mentioned for it immediately. And that's going to happen. To have a coach who's good enough to be in there is going to happen. I got used to it as a Razorback fan with Eric Musselman until he finally did leave. So with the USC job, but like that was the one that me and you were both like, yeah, that makes sense. That would be where he's going to kind of head to. But this is one of those jobs that are going to be after finding a really good coach. So if you got a good coach and there might be some shakiness, I might perk up a little bit to that coaching carousel conversation going on in Indiana and see who they bring in for interviews. Let's go ahead and let's get started talking about this week.
Well, in the first meeting, Kentucky prevailed in TBA, but Tennessee is going to be looking for some revenge in Rupp after playing much better basketball over the last few games. David, I feel like this one's going to turn into a bit of a rock fight here. What are your thoughts on it?
I mean, it's gonna be crazy. Last time these two teams got together, Kentucky went 50% from the floor, only +1 in 3-point field goals made, but they shot much better than Tennessee. We talked about the inconsistency, and then they put up a fight on the rebounds, only losing the battle by 3 boards in this game. They came in and Kentucky put up a heck of a fight. That said, we were complaining about Tennessee in this one. At least I was losing my mind because I was over here like, Tennessee should have won this game. Like they made some stupid mistakes late not to beat Kentucky, shot themselves in the foot. Um, and let's see if they've learned from it. Like that's my big conversation at this point. Vols have played much better basketball over the last couple of games. Like they came into a really good, and they just played a really tough portion of their schedule, but they beat Missouri, they beat Oklahoma. Pretty convincingly, and they dominated Florida by 20 points. Coming off the back-to-back losses to Auburn and Kentucky, this is kind of like them bouncing back up right now. And I definitely feel like this is a game that I think Tennessee's an interest on making sure, like they both lost, they're going to split on every rivalry game if things kind of play out the way we kind of think they're going to play out with Kentucky this weekend or with this week. They got a chance here to make it 500 for this season where they split the year. And yeah, Tennessee's playing a lot better basketball than Kentucky overall. And surely that defense is going to be right there, and it's an efficient enough offense for the Volunteers to cause Kentucky some problems.
Yeah, I think here we look at the defensive side of the ball when it comes to Kentucky. You've got to stop their 3-point shooters, which, as we mentioned, Kentucky's 3-point game has been seemingly declining since the beginning of SEC play, especially when you look at Kobe Brea.
Well, they have
They're
hot and
making
cold nights. That's really what it is. Nights they're great, and then nights it's like, yeesh.
Yeah, so I think with this good defense with Tennessee, Kentucky's gonna have to focus on either getting a good open shot or getting the ball down low, um, finding other ways to score than just banking on going hot from the 3-point line. But like we've talked about Tennessee, you're gonna have to have a shooter other than Chaz Lanier to beat a solid 3-point shooting team. We've seen Zakai Ziegler get a little bit better. We've seen Jordan Gainey add some good contributions. So if Tennessee's going to be consistent like they were the last few games, I'm not worried about them at all. But
Zakai Ziegler came back midweek. We talked about that, and he had a huge game. Last time we talked about Tennessee and where they were at. He followed that up with coming back from injury with a 17-point performance, 9 rebound and 4 rebounds, 9 assists game, while going 3 for 4 from three. That's really darn efficient. But also for Kentucky, another guy who came back. the missing piece is, if you ask Kentucky fans, and that's Lamont Butler. Lamont Butler in his return for Kentucky goes for 8 points, 3 assists, and plus 13 in this game. So he had a decent return basketball game after going non-contact in on Thursday's practice for Kentucky. So I definitely feel like, these teams have got something back that they needed overall, but we're going to see just exactly who's the better team right now. I do feel like Tennessee has played some good basketball right now. They look a lot better than it's like they learned something when they about themselves after they got done playing Kentucky last time at TBA. And they've definitely, that defense has traveled at times. Other than that Florida game, where it was really ugly, and then the kind of up and down performance that they just could not shake Vandy overall. But like, they've beaten Florida. They beat Missouri, who's a great points per shot team and a really good offense. Smoked Oklahoma, who's another good points per shot offense. And now they get their third one in a row where they're facing Kentucky. Is it going to be odds flip and offense wins one time on the road here, or is it going to be just Tennessee's defense getting the job done and shutting things down? I feel like with a healthy backcourt, it's going to be much more difficult for Kentucky.
Yeah, I think it's going to be rough. When it comes to, the defensive backcourt for sure, because
I mean, we were
they're
talking about, I just want to make that point very clear. Tennessee limits teams. They're the number one team in the country when it comes to limiting teams on effective field goal percentage to under 42 or under 43%. Like, that's really solid. And then also they limit teams. They're number one in shutting down the 3-point shot, which Kentucky needs at times. Last game, they got it and they were hitting at 50%. Normally, they limit teams to 26.6%. So do we have a little bit return to a mean here? That's kind of what I'm at. And like I said, Tennessee having that healthy front court with Zakai Ziegler, regardless if Butler's back or not, Ziegler's a pretty good defender.
oh yeah, looking at Ziegler, looking at
Meshack.
Ashak, and Jordan Gainey at times can be a lockdown defender too, and really um, change change the way a basketball game can go. Um, but I feel like consistency is key here. Do we see this consistent Tennessee team that we've seen the last few games, or do we see Kentucky get hot and just absolutely demolish them? I don't know.
You don't know. You don't know. Well, it's Chaz Lanier. Like, we're coming down to that backcourt conversation. Chaz Lanier, he's going to be the number one guy, 17.7 points per game, over 40% from three. And then Otego Way is going to be your key driver for Kentucky in any given circumstances. He's almost 50% from the floor, really good scorer. To me, like, I'm looking at that secondary matchup between Lamont Butler and Zakai Ziegler. Really, can Zakai Ziegler continue to be as proficient as he has been? Ken Baum's got this game going to Tennessee with the win, 74-72 at 59%. Maddie, do you like the revenge from Tennessee? It picked Tennessee at home last time as well.
I love a good revenge game. Give me the Vols. Give me Zakai Ziegler. I don't shut up about him. So I hope he goes off in this game and continues to be able to rack up a couple points from three.
At the expense of looking stupid, I agree with you. I'm going to go Tennessee as well. And I'm sure if Kentucky wins this game, they will be in our comments. But like, yeah, I'm not dismissing Kentucky. I think they got a chance to win this game. Certainly, if Butler continues to improve on those numbers from his return game against South Carolina, and he has some lockdown defense, that helps a lot. But right now, I think Tennessee's trending just a little bit better over these last couple of games, and they've shown us what they can do against really tough offenses and good offenses. And like I said, Tennessee made some dumb mistakes, and they should have beat Kentucky last time in TBA. Let's see if they learn from their mistakes. I'm going Vols as well in this one. Florida is on the path to hunting down a top four seed in the tournament, but they need some more wins to lock it up. They got a chance against a refreshed and ready Mississippi State team. Maddie, we saw State get the win against Georgia on the road. We were kind of like, State's kind of in a questionable spot, but they certainly looked a lot better against Georgia, getting that time to get ready for that basketball game. How do you think they fare against Florida?
Yeah, definitely. I believe our last episode we both picked against Mississippi State because we felt they reached their peak and were slowly starting to plummet. But we saw a little bit of fight in them. They went on the road and got a win. So I'm interested to see how things transfer back to their home court against a Florida team who is red hot right now with that win over Auburn. I think this one is going to be an interesting battle because I feel like they're both decent in the backcourt, especially since you got, I believe, Elijah Martin. I haven't seen if he's going to be in or out for this game yet.
That's
Uh,
questionable, yeah, but he just had a great perform. Team did fine without him
Yeah,
last game.
they definitely did okay, I guess. I mean, they did all right. But with Elijah Martin out, takes out one of your main go-to shooters. So I feel like the backcourts are matched pretty well. But like we talked about, Florida's front court is just absolutely massive. You've got Keyshawn Murphy, you've got Cam Matthews from Mississippi State, but I think they're well outclassed by Alex Condon and Ruben Chinulu.
Yeah, Chinyulu's been really solid. I mean, it is a stacked front court when you go down to it. When you go through the three-man rotation here on this team, the guards are really good too. Like Josh Hubbard is a good guard. They got about four Josh Hubbards. So like that's the thing. Like Walter Clayton has been outrageously good, and we saw him just go off against Auburn this last week, this weekend. And like even in the absence of, having a sidekick out there with Elijah Martin, just found other options as well. Clayton in this game, 19.6 rebounds and 9 assists. So scoring and facilitating while going over 50% from the floor and knocking down 4 threes. And who's he out there finding? Well, how about Aberdeen, who had 10 points in this game against Auburn, and then he was also flying Clavzar, also for 9 points, and goes plus 17 in this game, going 3 for 3 from the field. They found options in this game, and Will Richard got 12 points, 5 rebounds as well. So the backcourt is really good for Florida. And I don't feel like State has that same kind of front court. They are kind of backcourt. Like they have Josh Hubbard, who is a significant player. Riley Kugel, who is a Florida transfer, by the way, this is going to be, let's see how much Riley Kugel goes off for. He's a significant contributor for this team, but you start going down role players immediately with Caldell Harris and then also Sean Jones. Like you have a drop off. And Florida is much deeper in that backcourt. I think the front court battle is going to be huge. I think State's defense is going to be important. I think State's a good basketball team. And you're going to need RJ Melendez to help you stretch the floor. But let's be fair, Florida's just a little bit deeper as a rotation overall. And most of these guys can defend as well for the Gators. And Lord, if they get Elijah Martin back, who was only questionable for that Auburn game.
Yeah, and Kim Palm agrees with us in this one. They have Florida taking this one on the road 79-74 at 65%. David, what you thinking?
I just State had a really good showing against Georgia. They really did, and they played much better. And they needed that refresher. But there's getting back at home against Florida. I can see the fans getting up for that game. They certainly need to, like, when you look at State and like their odds of like who are they going to beat, like they haven't had just that signature home win. They got wins over South Carolina at home, Ole Miss at home, and then that's it. Other than that, at home they've had Kentucky, who they weren't able to beat, Alabama they weren't able to beat at home, and Missouri they weren't able to beat at home. Let me go for some nonsense here and let me see if the hump actually, takes this thing over. I'm going State in a nonsense game because like I just feel like this is the SEC and everyone's so deep. I think the hump's overdue for a win here against a big time opponent. I think it's either going to come against Florida or Texas A&M. I'm just going to roll my dice and see if I can't get one of these two when I pick them in one of these big games, the top 10 games in the hump. So I'm going to say State wins this one, and I'll reserve to pick State again when they face Texas A&M at home. But let's just see it. Let's just see it.
All right, Sabrina Carpenter, you keep your nonsense game because I'm picking Florida in this one. Um, I just think they've got a little too much to handle for Mississippi State.
I get to see a big letdown game for Florida too. I could just see that, and they've been inconsistent from three. And then State's been a decent defensive team overall. And then also with that front court that Florida's got, Mississippi State's the 87th team in the country, so top third of the country, and allowed opponents' field goal percentage from two. So they've done a really good job of stopping other teams from the interior overall. So let me see what happens. I'm playing the odds here. I'm just playing the odds. I think State's going to knock somebody off in the hump.
Well, we'll see if your odds continue to play out. But let's move to another one that's got almost no odds for the home team. Got some Memorial Magic being a big thing this season for Mark Byington and Vanderbilt, but they're going to need a lot of magic. We're talking like Harry Potter world in order to take down the Auburn Tigers after they took their first loss in SEC play. David, it's going to be a massive game for Auburn. I feel sorry for Vanderbilt for what's about to happen to them.
I don't know why you're feeling sorry for Vandy. They've only lost one game at home this season. One game at home this season. And how are you feeling here? I mean, Vandy Memorial Magic's real. It's 100% real at this point. Like I don't think there's any doubt when another team comes into Memorial, like, all odds are off against all bets are off at that point.
I mean, true, but when you have Auburn taking their first loss of the year, you know Bruce Pearl is going to be in there just hammering down their throats that they're not going to lose anymore. I have a feeling like that is the rhetoric that's going around the Auburn locker room right now, that if they lose another game, that's it's over. He's going nuclear. So I just have a
You
feeling
don't
that
buy it. You don't buy it at all. You don't buy
for
the hope. You're,
no.
you're just against the hope at this point. No,
I
look,
am a non-believer in magic when it comes to this game.
like, here's the truth. If Vandy causes a bunch of turnovers and they get out in transition and they play a Vandy basketball game, yeah, no, all bets are off in Memorial at that point because the crowd's going to be right behind them and everything else. But there's one key stat I'm looking at here. Auburn's a really good three-point shooting team. They just got done with a very bad three-point shooting game at home. And Vandy is the 336th team in the country in opponent allowed three-point field goal percentage. They allow better than 36%. At 37% is what Vandy is at in allowing opponents to shoot from three. Auburn's going to make them pay. I don't care if they're a Memorial or not. Like, I think they're going to. Auburn will hit at least 35%, I feel like, in Memorial on this week. And yeah, I'm with you. When you look at the front court, they're going to be running up and down with some of the best in this conference, and they're not going to have a size equivalent. Devin McLaughlin at 6'7", Jalen Carey at 6'8", and then Tyler Nickel at 6'7" as well. McLaughlin and Carey have been good. Like, I want to make that clear. They're very good basketball players, and they can take over games against teams that are not solid in the front court, like we saw in Texas. Like, Texas had more talented front court players, but they had no depth when it came down to it. And at least Vandy's got something of a rotation. That was one of the reasons they were able to take advantage of Texas. They got the win against Kentucky in that game, but that's really because like they had really exceptional performances from other players like Jason Edwards, and that's going to be part of it. Jason Edwards having a big game would be imperative for them to be able to knock off for them to be able to knock off for them to be able to knock off Auburn, and so would AJ Hogard. But they just really don't have that same kind of front court that other teams had. When you look at other teams who are good in the front court or have a dominant big man, for Vanderbilt this season, Alabama, you get Cliff Ramori and Grant Nelson who can come out there and cause problems. They lost to Florida, who's got a great front court. Missouri's an improved front court. Mississippi State's got a good front court. I mean, when you combine the fact that Vanderbilt allows this kind of shooting with they don't have the same front court matchup that probably arguably either the best or the second best front court in the SEC, who's got the player of the year arguably in the front court for them is coming to your house. That is a recipe for a very, very bad home basketball game. So it is Memorial Magic versus the paper. And the paper is saying you should pick Auburn all day long. And that's what Kim Pom says. 87-76 going to Auburn at 84%. Maddie, I'm going Auburn. It's logic.
Let's go back on your nonsense kick for a minute.
There's a difference between nonsense and it ain't gonna happen.
How quickly would the world burn in Auburn if they were to lose two back-to-back games and the second being Vanderbilt?
No, and Vandy's been really nasty at doing this, like Tennessee, Kentucky. Like you could go down the list. They just got a huge win against Texas as well. The court storming's real. I will first kid who reaches out to me and you could prove that you're a Vanderbilt student and you were on the court after the Auburn game, if you upset, I will pay your $75 fee or whatever the athletic department is going. I'll pay for one kid. Like, one's on me. I'll give you $75 for that court storming because like, yeah, for the third court storming of the year. So like, yeah, no, 100%, like the world would be on fire. And then I think you'd wake up and go, how does Vandy keep doing this? So like, yeah, Mark Byington's a good coach. That's the answer. they're in for a bigger fight than the one I think they are, but I don't think it pairs well at all. So I'm Auburn all day long.
Yeah, I'm not agreeing with the nonsense. I just find it funny, like that old SpongeBob meme with all the dumpsters on fire. That would be Auburn if something were to happen.
Things would be
I'm gonna go
really
with
crazy. And like, look, I'm not arguing that hilarious would not be very funny, or would not be great to watch. I don't think it's going to happen, and I think Auburn is 100% on a destination collision course with Alabama right now. I don't see them losing to Vanderbilt after a home loss to Florida.
yeah, I'm going Tigers as well. Just thought I'd throw a little fun in there, a
Yeah,
little
I
mix.
mean, it's worth the fun. It would be very fun. Even Auburn fans, like, if they could objectively remove themselves from being a fan for Auburn for a second, and
Like if it was Alabama.
oh, Alabama fans would 100% die. Like, that's why it's funny. Like, if
Yeah.
that were to happen. However, I don't think it's going to happen, but that would be, let's cheer for hilarious in that moment. So, but like I said, combination of the bad 3-point shooting, combination of the deeper front court, I think Auburn's got this game no problem in this one, even with Memorial Magic probably cranking down that 3-point percentage by like 2 or 3%. So, Georgia is in a place where their NCAA tournament hopes are getting closer and closer to that line. They need a quad one win to get them out of the bubble conversation, and they got a matchup against Texas A&M to give them a chance in Reed. Maddie, your kind of thoughts on this game?
I think this one is a very interesting matchup because we look at Georgia, we talk about how great their front court is, but they're young. And we've got a Texas A&M team that usually dominates the boards. So I feel like that's going to be an interesting balance there. Um, I feel like this one's gonna be one of those experience versus talent games. There's a lot of talent on Texas A&M. We just talked about Pharrell Payne and how fantastic, phenomenal he was in this last game, and the fact that Henry Coleman pulled down 16 boards on his own. It's
Yeah,
gonna be
I
a
think
rough game
it's
for Georgia to look for hope towards the tournament in this one.
I thought you took a pause there. That's my bad. But
No,
yeah,
you're good.
I'm with you. Like it is this very young, talented team that is built similarly to Texas A&M. Not the same by any means. Like Texas A&M's got a decent offense. They're bad at shooting. When they get those second chance points, that's what matters. But like you go to the front court conversation or the back court conversation. Wade Taylor, Zurich Phelps, really good. But they can be inefficient at times. Even against Missouri, Wade Taylor wasn't exactly just up there the most efficient scorer you ever seen in your life. Zurich Phelps has some difficulty from three at times, and other guys as well. Like it's not Texas A&M's forte, but their defense is locked down, and they get those second chance opportunities. For Georgia, like they're a little bit better in their effective field goal shooting. Like they're in the top, 150 teams. So it's better. It's not great. And the offense is functional. Both these teams really good on defense. Both these teams really good at rebounding the basketball. Like very solid. A&M's a better offensive rebounding team, and they do a really good job in the differential of making up for that. Whereas Georgia terminates those possessions, and they do a really good job on the defensive glass, and they're holding their opponents when it comes to their rebound percentage. They're sitting there at like 30%, something like that. Whereas Texas A&M is shutting everybody down at 28.3% in those rebound percentages. So it's like Texas A&M's got the experience. They're just that one step better than what Georgia is right now. And that's a lockdown defense as well. So it's not like the backcourt though for Georgia has to come out and match Wade Taylor in this game. It's not the same. These are two teams, whoever gets hot on offense and has a good defensive night and wins the boards, that whoever wins two out of those three categories, backcourt offense, you know, all the boards and everything else. If you win two out of three of those conversations, that's the winner of this basketball game.
Yeah, I was gonna say basically the same thing. You've got Silas.
Silas Demery is a good basketball player,
Yeah,
and
you
he
got
can get
Silas
these.
Timmery, you got Blue Cane, you've got some young players who are good and can shoot from three. But then again, we take into account Texas A&M's lockdown defense.
Yeah. Tyron Lawrence, in his age, and his experience might have to be a leader for this team. I know he went down with a hammy. I didn't get any things other than that. I think he finished that game though. But like, yeah, you're going to need somebody with some leadership skills for Georgia really to kind of lead the way in this game. So a little bit of backcourt injury there. Maybe Deshane Montgomery, maybe Dakota LaFew, who's played a few more years of basketball, overall. But this team's still really young, and you just don't want to see them make a bunch of mistakes against a good backcourt defense with Zurich Phelps. Like, who is going to prevail in that regard? Ken Palm's got this an extremely tight basketball game. Not really. They've got Texas A&M winning this one 71-63 there in Reed Arena at 76%. Maddie, who are you going with?
Give me the Aggies. Give me Reed Arena. I think this is going to be a difficult environment for Georgia to play, especially coming off of that last second shot win. You know, the students are going to show up and show out for that one.
A&M's
Um,
hot right now. Yeah, A&M's hot right now. They're a little bit more tenured team, and of course, yeah, they've got Reed Arena behind them in this one. I'm going Aggies as well. It makes it a little bit more chaotic for Georgia to put an end for that 10-year drought. They really need to take one here pretty soon. Looking ahead on the schedule for Georgia, like after Texas A&M, they got Missouri, Auburn, Florida, and Texas all coming up. You got to find someone you're going to upset in that list of teams. It is a rough road. You got to find something to find your way into the NCAA tournament at some point because man, oh man, those home games just became crucial if you can't steal one on the road here.
Speaking of the NCAA tournament, the bubble conversation is 100% in full effect as Alabama takes on another bubble team with the Texas Longhorns in the Moody. A win for Rodney Terry and the Horns almost surely puts them in, but they're facing a team on the collision course of destiny with Auburn. David, this game's got some big implications, but seems a little outmatched. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, there's a lot of versatility and a lot more depth in the front court for Alabama overall when you talk about Muhammad Diabate, Grant Nelson, Cliff Amore, and the other forwards that Alabama has in their rotation. Texas does not have that kind of rotation. They can shoot, though, with Alabama if necessary. In fact, they can shoot better than Alabama if necessary. Like, they're more than capable with guys like Trey Johnson. Kaluma can step out and hit a three just like Grant Nelson can. You've got guys overall on this team who can score. Jordan Pope, Tremont Mark, and you can do it in a lot of different ways and be effective. Um, Texas is capable, like I said, they're capable of shooting with Alabama. They're also going to play at a totally different pace than Alabama. And Alabama is going to want to run up, make it 70 possessions and 70 to 75 possessions in a basketball game and go up and down the court. Texas is going to throw anchor out there and try to make it 65, 66 possessions in a game. They're going to want, so if we get a middle ground of 68, I don't know how this game turns out in Moody. It gets a lot more complicated at that point. But it really comes down to the effectiveness of Alabama from two. They are good from two. Like, no mistake about it. They're shooting 60.7% from the interior this season. That's second best in the country. Their three-point percentage has not been their three-point percentage out of all things that we did not expect Alabama is their capping issue right now when it comes to being that next level team. They're only shooting 33.4% from the field. Texas is a really good effective field goal shooting team, and they're a good three-point shooting team as well, shooting over that magic 36% number. Um, if Texas can limit the possessions, get the shots they want, and get some good looks from defense on in this game, Texas gets the upset. If not, if it becomes Alabama's front court's going to overwhelm and Alabama's going to get way more possessions than Texas wants them to have. You start counting the blackjacks, and there's a lot of hits there for 21 overall when you're sitting there at the table. And that's how Alabama is built, similar to Kentucky. You're going to run that blackjack table, you're going to run those percentages, and the analytics play out for Alabama in that game. So it's about control more than anything else here at home for me.
Yeah, I think the big thing here is we've talked about it before. Alabama's defense is better this season. If they had the defense of last season with the offense of this season, I'd feel a lot more confident for Texas.
National
But
champions. Yeah, national
we
champion
saw them play a
conversation.
great team. Yeah, we saw them play a great defensive team in Arkansas just last night. Texas's defense doesn't match up anywhere near that. But like you said, they've got more three-point shooting, better shooting opportunities than Arkansas does. So do we see that even it out a little bit? I'm not sure, but I just feel like Alabama's going to run with this one. And Texas's defense is going to have to step it up.
I mean, Arkansas's shooting has been better of late, and they shot 35% against Alabama. So I do think that this is one of those games like you have an even better 3-point shooting team with more 3-point shooting options. I think the backcourts match really well. I think it comes down entirely to the depth of Alabama's front court and the amount of possessions that Alabama creates. And if they can get in there and continue to shoot at such a high percentage from the interior, they're getting to the paint, and I mean to the paint with ease when they get in there. So I'm just 100% like, can Kaluma and Shedrick get you enough possessions like that? Can you win just enough possessions to pull this game out? I don't know if they can. I do not know if they can. And like I said, the collision course of destiny is right behind them. Kim Palm's got this game going to Alabama 83-80 at 59%. Maddie, who are you going with?
I'm going to take Alabama in this one. I think they're just a little bit better here.
Yeah, I'm gonna roll tide with this one as well. I think the front court's gonna be overwhelming for Texas overall in this game. Well, Ole Miss had to sweat it out against LSU, and now they have another game where they can't fall asleep. South Carolina is off to their worst start in school history in conference play. Can they upset Chris Beard and Ole Miss? Maddie, your kind of thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, this is a weird game because we always talk about desperation can do a lot of things for a basketball game, and I think that's where we're at with South Carolina. They're desperate to get a win here, and there are definitely some flaws in Ole Miss that they could take advantage of. Um, you get them on an off night shooting. You take out Sean Padula. You take out Matthew Morrell, and we're talking a good ball game here. We've seen kind of their guards start to step up a little bit. We've got Jamari Thomas, um, and then as always, Colin Murray Boyles that usually takes over this game. I think he's going to be a big factor here, matching up with Malik Dia.
Malik Dia and Brakefield and Dre Davis, that combination right there is going to have their hands full quite a bit, along with Mikael Brown Jones. But I think there's a little bit more versatility in the way that they play. They can step out and shoot from three, and the defense is really good in the front court. So I don't see Colin Murray Bowles, dragging them across the finish line to a win necessarily. I've said that before, and they have, made Florida sweat it out with them in Columbia. I mean, it's certainly a case where there's a lot of good here, but Ole Miss has got the defense, they got the shooting, they got a really good team, and they do not turn over the basketball. 12.4% or 12.5%, number one team in the country in turnover percentage. It comes down to, can you get the only way that South Carolina creates more possessions for themselves is to dominate the offensive glass, which they're capable of. 305th in the offensive rebound percentage for Ole Miss this season. South Carolina, just shade a little bit better. Not great though, but like they're sitting at 31.6% at 137th in the country. It's that if you're looking for a path, that's the way to do it. And then you got to have your backcourt step up as well and shoot effectively from three, which overall under 33% for the season for South Carolina. I don't know how that matches up overall when you're talking about your backcourt players have just not. I mean, they're basically limited role players overall for South Carolina on this roster. But, Kim Palm keeps it a little bit closer than what you might expect, but I think home court's playing a big advantage here. Kim Palm's got it 70-65 at 69% going to Ole Miss. Maddie, who are you going with?
I'm going to go with the Rebels on this one. I think Ole Miss waltzes in and steals this one from South Carolina pretty
Yeah, I
easily.
don't think they're going to fall asleep in two games, so I'm going to go Ole Miss in this one, despite Ole Miss having to make a serious comeback against LSU.
Well, another team that we have talked a lot about today, Arkansas, is looking to get some payback against LSU, this time in Bud Walton. David, we got a game here.
Yeah, this is an important game for Arkansas. Like I said, they need to win kind of their home game stretch here overall for the Razorbacks. Like they're just kind of in this spot where if you do what the computer says you're supposed to do, you're in the NCAA tournament. It's a weird case season for that. LSU is a game that you're projected to win at home. You're expected to beat Texas at home, South Carolina on the road, and Mississippi State on the road. If you can steal one more, you may get even more comfortable in that. Getting to 8-10 is better than 7-11. 7-11 probably gets you in the tournament this season. Lenardi was talking about something the other day where maybe even 6-12 pulls it off, but let's not find out like that if you're a Razorback fan. Like if you're an Arkansas fan right now, you want to make sure you handle your business against LSU. You had a poor run at the end of the game. You need to finish your basketball game if you're Arkansas in this one. And look, they have been much, much better from three. This team is close to now to 34% from three, and they're now in the top 75 in teams when it comes to opponents' 3-point percentage, locking teams down. And they're in the top 100 when it comes to 2-point percentage, rocking a top 30 defense in the country. They're one of the best shot blocking teams in the country as well. Look, Jonas Adu has not been particularly great. I think this is one where Jonas Adu needs to step up for the Razorbacks because he gives you a lot of size advantage if he can step it up. Give 5-7 good minutes if you're Jonas Adu to allow Big Z to get a real breather. Trevor Brazil not to be have high pressure situations on him because if you could do that, again, Arkansas still takes a step forward. And I think that they're showing right now in a better direction. They're playing good defense, they're hitting shots. I think you need to get Z in rotation just a little bit and knock down some easy threes for him. Same with DJ Wagner. I want to see more out of the backcourt for Arkansas than what they did in the Alabama game overall. Because if you can get DJ Wagner and Nelly Davis going a little bit quicker, it took Nelly a little while to activate for Arkansas. But if you can get them going quickly, I think that you can outpace LSU's offense, which is right now sitting at 113th in the country. So I'm kind of leaning that way. Arkansas's offense has not been its strength this season, but they're more favorable than LSU's offense.
Yeah, some of the key guys for LSU to keep an eye on for the Arkansas fans. We got Cam Carter, we got Corey Press, and Jordan Sears has been doing decent from three as well. So definitely guys to watch out for to lock down on. And those guys LSU are going to be looking for to give a good performance. Hopefully, give them a boost to come up with the upset in this one. But Kim Pom's got this one going to the Hogs 75-67 at 78%. David, who you picking?
A lot more momentum, a lot better home court advantage. Things are looking good for Arkansas. I'm going to go to the Razorbacks here. I expect them to win this one.
Yep, I'm going to go with Hogs as well here.
Yep, and that'll help them quite a bit. Might even be able to almost put them in the tournament at this point. All right, sometimes conference realignment takes away rivalries, but we get another one back with Oklahoma playing Missouri in Columbia this week. Maddie, your thoughts on this game?
I was kind of shocked that Missouri lost this last one, so I don't think they're going to go two in a row here, but we've seen Oklahoma have a solid solid effort in the last few basketball games. As always, you got Jeremiah Fears for everyone to worry about. His 3-point percentage has gone down a little bit throughout the season. I think, coming up with those major defensive teams take a little bit of hit. But you've got Jeremiah Fears, you've got Duke Miles, you've got guys that can step it up. And I think this one's going to be a offensive battle here in Columbia.
History has got this game. Oklahoma's won this game 115 times to 97 in this very long history dating back to 1916 in this game. The last 8 games, or excuse me, the last few games, the last 10 matchups have been 5-5. So it's been a coin flip essentially every time. I'll tell you one where area though that Missouri is definitely the better basketball team, and that is in the defensive portion of the court. Oklahoma is sitting right now 68th in the country when it comes to their defense. Missouri's been a little bit better, and that offense has been darn good. It's a top 15 offense, putting up 122 points per 100 possessions. Oklahoma, I would expect a lot of points in this game, and I expect a bounce back from Caleb Grill. After he being locked down against Texas A&M, I would also expect the front court to pull down quite a few rebounds for Missouri. I expect Mark Mitchell to have a good game. I expect Josh Gray to be really good in the front court as well. This is a team that has rebounded better this season. They're top 100 when it comes to rebound, 32.7 percent in offensive rebounds, and they've struggled allowing their opponents to rebounds. But Oklahoma has not been a good rebounding team at all this season. So I think the glass favors them. I think the home court favors them quite a bit. Mizzou's been really good at home, and I think they got some guys who are ready to break out after being held a little bit by Texas A&M in that last game. Overall, though, Ken Palm's got this game going to Missouri 80-73 at 74%. Maddie, who are you going with?
Give me the home team. I'm going with Mizzou in this one.
I'm also going Missouri in this one. I expect them to bounce back at home quite a bit in this one, keep themselves somewhere in the race for the double bye in the SEC tournament. Guys, thank you so much for watching today. If you have not already, please like and subscribe to the Hoop Southbound Show. Like I said, the conversation's changing a little bit. We're talking a little bit more March, so we're talking a little bit of bubble. We'll start doing a little bit more stuff, kind of talk about the NCAA tournament situation. So please like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.
Thanks, guys. Have a great week.